There are reports of illegal cluster bombs and vacuum bombs being used by the Russians. If that's true, what is the next step of this administration, and is there a red line for how much violence will be tolerated against civilians in this manner that's illegal and potentially a war crime?
It would be. I don't have any confirmation of that. We have seen the reports. If that were true, it would potentially be a war crime. Obviously, there are a range of international fora that would assess that. So certainly we would look to that to be a part of that conversation.
Welcome back. Permit me to flash back. In 2020, Jen Psaki debunked that using cluster bombs is a war crime. I recently came across a video where Karine defended Blast, who stood up, to go against Joe Latter's decision, to send Ukraine with cluster bombs. This is something a lot of people are talking about. I don't know if you have seen this. I'm going to play some videos so you can see exactly what is going on. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please endeavor to do that, and if possible, why not share this clip?
Thank you. Some Democrats have said that giving cluster munitions to Ukraine undermines America's reputation as a human rights defender around the world. What's the White House response?
I mean, we don't believe that it undermines our reputation of being human rights defenders. This is something that we say all the time, right? When it comes to human rights, when it comes to having those conversations with either our partners or other heads of state, the president is never shies away from having those conversations. Look, I mean, Jake said this when he was here. We have to remember what's happening in Ukraine, right? Ukraine is defending itself. It's defending its freedom. It's defending its sovereign territory. And that is what we're doing here. We're making sure that they are able to do that. This is a war that Russia started. This is an aggression by Russia. And so we have seen bipartisan support in what we're trying to do in helping Ukraine, fighting for their freedom. And I think we're continuing to see that. But as it comes to human rights, the president will always be very clear and have very honest conversations with our partners and other heads of states across the world.
Thank you. Jake Sullivan mentioned that President Biden took this decision about cluster munitions after consulting with allies. So I wanted to see if you could provide some details about if Germany was consulted or Poland, what countries were.
I'm not going to go into each country that was consulted, but clearly those are some of our allies, correct? And so I'm just not going to get into details, but certainly the president did consult our allies and partners here. Look, when you look at the last 16 months of this war that we saw that this Russia aggression in Ukraine, we have seen a NATO alliance that has been strengthened because of the leadership of this president. We have seen bipartisanship here. We have seen Europe come together, the West come together to make sure that we do everything that we can to help Ukraine fight for its freedom. And so that is really important. We got to remember what's at stake here. What's at stake is democracy. And so the president is going to do everything that we can to help the people of Ukraine fight for those freedoms. Go ahead.
We've talked a lot about assistance in terms of the security side today, but should we also expect any commitments on the humanitarian side with next week, either to those in exile in Lithuania or refugees in Poland?
That's a very good question, Zolan.
Yes, for about 1 year now, I've not talked about anything relating to Ukraine. But I cannot continue to stay silent. When I look at what is going on, till date, we still don't know if there will be a solution to this. Every single time we are saying, Joe taking up a decision to send this, to Ukraine, spending billions, on this war. I recently read a tweet where Marjorie Taylor Greene sent out on Twitter. She was very brutal about this, that Joe took up a decision to bypass Congress, by using his powers, to enact a law, that can send these ammunitions to Ukraine. It was a war crime, Psaki stated clearly, like we have seen. But now, from the look of things, Joe claimed that the U.S. security state is hard, so they have to take up this decision. How can you continue to do this? We don't hear of anything about peace. Every single the escalations, of the situation, they are actually putting everyone at risk at this level. Who knows the next decision Russia might be preparing? Because this is escalation. Other nations rejected this. They said no, no, no. Now America is sending this to Ukraine, like Joe claimed on one interview, that Ukraine has carefully, accepted, the appeal that they will use this carefully. Reason they decided to do that. You just need to be prayerful because one doesn't know the outcome of this war. I have never seen a situation where people keep on talking about escalations without a single solution, pertaining to peace.
In March, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, she described those munitions as, quote, exceptionally lethal weaponry which has no place on the battlefield. So how do you square those comments with this decision? And secondly, has Ukraine provided you with any assurances or guarantees in terms of their use in civilian areas, that they won't use them within a certain radius of civilian areas, for example?
So Ukraine has provided written assurances that it is going to use these in a very careful way that is aimed at minimizing any risk to civilians. And by the way, Ukraine, the democratically elected government of Ukraine, has every incentive to minimize risk to civilians because it's their citizens, it's Ukrainians who they are trying to protect and defend. This is not Ukraine taking these and going and using them in the Middle East or in Southeast Asia or in some faraway land. They're using them on their territory to defend their territory. So we believe that they're highly motivated to do this, and beyond being highly motivated, they have, to directly answer your question, provided these assurances to us. In terms of the ambassador's comments and other comments that have been bandied about, let me just say that the use of cluster munitions by Russia in this conflict is completely unacceptable on multiple counts. First, they are using them to attack a sovereign country in flagrant violation of international law. Second, they are using them specifically to strike after civilian targets, not only military targets, also in flagrant violation of international law. And with this weapon system, as well as other weapon systems, we have identified war crimes committed by the Russians. Third, and critically, there is a big difference between the type of cluster munition being used by Russia and the type that we would provide to Ukraine. As I mentioned before, ours have a maximum 2.5% dud rate. The dud rate of the Russian munition...
No matter how you struggle to justify this, it's still not okay. The latest decision they took up to supply Ukraine with this, that Russia is doing that. Theirs is more even dangerous than the one they are sending.